Howdy, everybody in YouTube land. What we have in front of us today is a PC laptop. It's actually a Micron laptop. Now, this one, I had one of these when I was a kid. So, the story is, none of you are going to know the story, but I'm going to tell it anyways because why not? Story time. So when I was a kid, my mid-teens, early to mid-teens, I was volunteering at a place called Full Circle Group, which was in Woodlawn, Ohio. My teachers got me into that, and it was kind of fun at the time, but they eventually divested and was acquired by CCC, Cincinnati Computer Cooperative, which they still exist today, as far as I'm aware of, but FCG in its former glory is gone. Anyway, so at the time, they had a bunch of laptops, and I remember I was able to get this one. Now, I ended up getting rid of it in the yard sale because I was forced to by my mom, but that was fairly common back then, was yard sales and stuff like that. But anyways, at the time, I had one of these machines. It was actually a decent laptop. So when I saw this one pop up, I figured I would grab it. Now, this is a Micron Millennia TransPort laptop. Now this one has the CD-ROM drive. The one I had did not. It actually had a battery here. But this laptop does not have the battery because you can either do the CD or the battery, but not both, which is kind of an oddball design. But that's how it's designed, and there's no battery in this machine. Now, this machine has audio, active matrix display, and a Pentium, I think it's a Pentium 166 processor, might be a 150, I'm not sure. But, so this one, as with all of these Micron laptops, is missing the drive caddy. Now, I only think I paid $5 or $6 for this on eBay, so it wasn't much, and I have one. But, and I think the reason why is a lot of these machines were sold to governments, and before they were recycled, they pulled the drives and they kept the caddies, so the caddies are extremely rare. And that reminds me, I remember when I was in high school, I had a Dell Inspiron 3500, which eventually died, but then I had a Micron Trek 2 laptop, which was the Pentium 2 version of this one, and again, I got it from the same place. So what I ended up doing was I took the processor card out of the 3500, which was an MMC2, 400 megahertz, and moved it into that, and it was fine. But once again, it had the same problem. It was missing the drive caddy. And I remember when the drive caddies were on eBay back then, and this was 2003, 2004, back then, they were up over $100 just for the caddy because they were that rare and that high a demand. So for a long time, I used it as a Knoppix machine, which was one of the first live boot CD distributions of Linux. But then eventually I finally got the hard drive caddy and was able to use the machine. But anyways, story time over. If anyone that's just getting into retro computing PC hobby that needs an old PC for something like that, it doesn't have to be one of the mean PCs like the Toshiba Libretto or the Compaq LTE or the, what's the next one, the ThinkPad, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be one of these Micron no-names because, again, it has an active matrix screen, has onboard audio, a serial port, parallel port. This will do everything an old PC of this time period will do. Play Doom, whatever, all your DOS games, etc. It's going to do all of that, no problem. So if you want a PC just to do old PC stuff and you don't want to use emulation, this is the best way to go. It does not, you don't have to break the bank looking for a ThinkPad 365 or something like that. You don't have to do that. Or a Libretto 70 CT, 50 CT, etc. You don't have to do that. You can just get away with one of these. Anyways, moving right along, this one appears to have some issues with the keyboard. This one was kind of snapped off, so I pushed it back down. It's not perfect. This is kind of loose and crunchy, so I think the keyboard's seen some better days. But on the back side, we have the floppy drive, but also it's a factory reconditioned unit. Here's the part number. It's a 15 volt, 1.9 amp, which is the same as the Toshiba's. And I'm wondering if Toshiba didn't make this thing. or Panasonic, I should say, as well. Serial parallel hidden behind the door. It even has S-video in and out. I don't know if it'll do in. Nope, it's output. This thing has output, which is kind of neat, actually. And then there's the audio ports. So, unfortunately, I don't have the caddy in here, but I do have the caddy. Card bus slots, because you can see the copper chingus in there. That's how you can tell. And it appears to be factory reconditioned, so it means this machine had a problem in the past. But if I plug this in, if I can get it plugged in up there, nothing. No power. So either someone plugged in the wrong charger to this thing, or it died or whatever. It explains why it was $5. So you know what? Just for the sake of a YouTube video, why don't we dig into it and see if we can figure out what's going on. The first thing I'm doing right now is just pulling all the drives out. Micron branded drive. I don't know who actually made it, but yeah, manufactured for, of course. Oh, October 1996. That's ironic because I believe that is the month and the year for sure. That's the month when I got my very first computer I ever had, which was my IBM 5155, was given to me when I was in 5th grade. Very first computer I ever had. And I believe this was the month that it was happening, because I remember it was in the fall. Wow. So that's kind of ironic, actually. I took both drives out and I took the cover off here. And this is the kind of RAM that it uses. It's like the 72-pin SIM version of a laptop memory or something. But perhaps more importantly, they give us a convenient little place to test if voltage is coming in or not. So, you know what? Why not do some quick voltage checks right here? So I took the RAM module out and allowed me to get better access to that. So I did some checking the VN on, because these are all MOSFET transistors. So I did some voltage checks here, and I've got basically nothing. So the problem's going to be further upstream. They most certainly do not make them like they used to. I mean, I got the keyboard out of the way. I got that out of the way, the palm rest. But man, this thing's built like a tank. They do not make them like that anymore. I'm slowly getting this thing apart. I got 50,000 pieces over here now. One thing that's immediately apparent to me, there's a top module that comes off, which plugs in with the board-to-board connector. There's a couple of caps on top, but if I go flip this over, there's quite a number of them on the bottom. At least we know what hardware it's using. But, yeah, there's quite a few of them. The purple ones I think are polymer, but I'm not sure. Like those, which I'm not going to mess with, but these black and silver ones, yeah, that could be a problem. Doubt it's my cause because this is the audio board, but yeah. I gotta see what's underneath all of this. Taking the remainder of the screws and cables and stuff out, so I removed one there, there, and there. And then a fourth one somewhere else. Anyways, so I'm unplugging the plugs and I noticed something right away. Look at that. I see green crusties. I bet I found the battery. Yeah, that's bothersome. Well, that was a pain in the ass to get apart, so I had to remove the module from below here, which is this guy over here. This is the CPU card, chipset, cache memory, core regulator, all that fun stuff, RAM, ROM, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's on there. But then once that's out of the way, I had to get under here and unplug all of this. And then eventually this came out. Now, this is the board. Looks like it's got a Cirrus Logic graphics chip from '96. I see various Pico fuses, and then this is the DC converter board that I need to get at. So, yeah, I want to start checking fuses and things like that. But, however, I need to figure out, because there's the battery connection here. I need to figure out where that's going. It's going up under this thing somewhere, so I need to find it and get it out of here. This built like a tank machine is not designed for ease of service. Definitely not. So I had to take a screw out here and here so I could lift that out and out of the way, which is the CD-ROM drive thingamabob. That reveals this plastic cover, which probably has the battery in it. Does not look fun to get out, so yeah. Looks like it's got a lot of things attached to it. Alright, there we go. See, there's the battery. Ah! A Max L bomb! Alright, so I got the Varta battery out of there. This is the one that the green corrosion had wicked up the connector, so that's how I knew there was a battery in there. And that's a 7.2. This is probably the standby battery, sleep battery, which is not necessary. This battery, although, is the Maxell Super Lithium 3.6 volts. So that battery is probably there to keep the clock and the settings and all that stuff. Now, the problem is these particular batteries, now this is a smaller physically battery here, but these particular batteries are notorious for exploding and leaving a disaster behind on various Macintosh machines. So good thing I checked this, because that's going to go bye-bye. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to cut the wires. I'll probably loop it out through the back here so I can set a little coin cell or something in there if I want to keep the clock or whatnot. This battery is not important anymore. I don't care. And that's it. Snip those wires, lead them out, and be done with it. But first things first, I need to fix the dead motherboard and figure out why it's dead. And then that's the IR transceiver, which is what that cable goes to. So, okay. Now I can just put that lid back on and be done with it. Now that I got the board out and everything in place, that DC converter board wasn't seated in all the way. So once I gave it a nice push, I can hit the power button now and it comes right on. So that's what it was. Thank God it was simple. So it's nothing crazy. Now, I'm trying to think if I should change the caps on this thing or not. They aren't showing any signs of leakage, but I gotta debate on that. I gotta really debate on that. After contemplating around, there's a handful of electrolytic capacitors, mostly in the 100 microfarad variety. There's one on the DC converter board, and there's a few on the sound board, especially over here. So, you know what? I think I'm just going to go ahead and change them, because, yeah, they're not showing any problems now, but that's what I said when I first saw the capacitors in my SE30 back in 2007. Like, oh, I mean, they don't seem bad, but yeah, as time went on, we all know what happened there. So I'm just going to go ahead and change them before they start pissing all over the board. Now, these purple caps, like these there, and then these here, those are polymer caps. I'm not going to touch those. They don't leak. They're solid capacitors, but they do go bad. I've seen them go bad, but they don't leak. So I'm less inclined to worry about those right now. Yep, that was smart. So I got these three changed. They're a little taller, but they'll still clear. But yeah, two of these, one of them had a little bit of something, the other one didn't. But when you heated up the pins to clean them off, you could smell that smell. So they were just starting to leak. So they had to go. So I have the capacitors that I had on hand installed. I've got one over there. I've got some over here. Now, I didn't change the polymers. And out of all of them, I only had two that were showing signs of leakage. I changed those. Everything's been changed. The only ones that have not are these two here, because those are 220s and I do not have those on hand. So I'll have to order those. But luckily they're on the top board, so it's not a big deal. I can get to it later. But in the meantime, I think we need to go ahead and start putting this guy back together so we know we can make sure everything works. Now I know the motherboard turns on, so luckily. Alright, so now it's just the reverse process of getting all of this crap back together. So let's get started. As I'm putting this laptop together, I'm starting to notice that just about most of the parts in this machine is made by Sanyo. A lot of the chips were, the keyboard is, so I'm wondering if this machine was made by Sanyo for Micron. I bet it was. Now that it's all back together, let's see what this thing has in it specs-wise. Oh, don't you dare do this to me again. Oh, there we go. Alright. CD-ROM kicked up. 133. Close enough. Alright, what's in here? Nothing serious. CMOS checksum invalid. Which, yeah, we're gonna have that because there's no battery. System date. Oh, I don't think that's right. Plug and play OS. Yeah, it's all that done. Yeah, it's gonna be fun trying to get all this done. Well, anyways, that's about all I can do for now until I get the hard drive caddy in there. So the second part of this is right here. So the battery that was in there is now out of the way. So I relocated the wires under here. So my thought process was to get a coin cell and just kind of hide it down in here somewhere. But I don't know if there's going to be enough room, but I'm certainly going to try. So anyways, I think that's it for that one. So let me get all of that taken care of. So it supports a maximum of 8.4 gigabytes, and I am trying to do a drive overlay software, and I keep getting this stupid divide error. But on top of that, I can't turn the numlock off for one, but perhaps worse, it will not retain any of the BIOS settings on reboot at all. So that means this must be one of those BIOSes. Yeah, this must be one of those BIOSes that has to have a good battery in order for it to work, even with the AC adapter continuing to be plugged in. So yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out. The process of trying to get Windows installed. CD-ROM drive has had it. But this BIOS requires a battery for it to even try to boot. So since I don't have one, I had to improvise. I wired in the battery connector to this power supply. So that'll allow me to at least start with this thing. So at that point, I was able to format the the hard disk drive and get the drive overlay software installed, and it's going. But the CD-ROM drive is toast. Toast. So I got the CD-ROM drive apart. One thing I noticed right away is the spindle's cracked. So that bearing's gone. I found it, but yeah, that's an issue. But it seems to be a proprietary drive. It's a lot thicker than your normal drive because your normal drive is about half that thickness. So yeah, I don't know. But perhaps more alarming is the laser assembly. The adjustment screw, if I can get it down in here. turned all the way down. So, someone's been in here. That laser is probably bad, unfortunately. Well, let me tweak on this a bit and see if I can't get it to work right. Totally normal computing. Totally normal. Yeah. Even though I got the CD-ROM drive tweaked enough to read the Windows 98 CD, it's very intermittent. Sometimes it'll pick it up and work fine, sometimes it won't. So what I've noticed is just the sheer amount of flux on all the chips on this drive. It's almost like this board was assembled manually at the factory. I mean, oh, who knows? But the fact is, I don't think this drive's ever going to work properly again. So, but it is what it is. Now that I got the OS installed, really a CD at this point, it's not even necessary anymore. So, anyways, I figured I'll do some documentation of all of this stuff and then move on to the next thing. Actually, I went on eBay. I actually found this is an SFU3000R. I found the pickup mechanism on eBay. They sell new old stock an entire mechanism. They're expensive, but if I want this drive to work properly and fix it, I can replace this. Apparently this is a very popular unit for like 6 CD changers and stuff like that, and they sell the crap out of them, so they must go bad all the time. Well, I mean, it's obvious. Look what this one's doing. Anyways, so once again, it's another Sanyo. So this is yet another Sanyo part. So I think at this point, from what I can tell, when I take this apart, this does not have the same IDE connector thing that most of these drives do. So this drive is 100% proprietary. So I don't have a choice to fix it if I want to make it work again. So at least I can get the parts. Expensive, yes, but you know what? Sometimes you have to pay to play, and I'm starting to learn that, unfortunately. Since the space here is limited, I want to do this the most hackish way possible. So I got me a new 2032 battery. I'm just gonna take the wires, keep them long, like curl them a little bit, stick them to the tape, put that on there, put the other one on there, and wrap it up in the tape, and then when I put the lid on, it will sandwich it together. So that's what we're gonna do.